Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Let's wait one more minute here to get started with today's webinar. All right, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Maritime Logistics Series 3 webinar today. Today we're gonna talk about how modern data platforms resolve challenges within the ocean shipping journey. My name is Jaakko Elovaara. I'm the CEO of Your EDI, and we have a special guest here today. In a couple of minutes, I'll introduce him and he will introduce himself. But just as kind of ground rules, let's take the questions in the end of this chat. So we will be doing an interactive webinar with our guest here, and please send those questions in the Q&A when you are ready to ask questions or comments, and then we will cover all those in the end. So today's guest is Lionel Chatelet, former Vice President of IT Transformation at CMA CGM, and now he is with Infosys as a partner on the consulting side. And Lionel, I will give the speech to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jaakko. Yes, I mean, you perfectly described it. I have a long track record of close to 20 years in the transportation and logistics, over the last 13 years working for CMA CGM, so this French shipping line, part of the top 3, top 4 worldwide. Very interesting journey abroad and in our headquarters in France. Over the past 2 years, I managed the IT transformation of CMA, so being a business leader, the idea was to, of course, support, develop, and implement our ERP backbone solution on the operational and commercial aspects. So this is where I've been in touch with data. Normally, data goes with issues, so that's how, of course, I came to be introduced to Your EDI, and I found the approach quite innovative in the way a company can manage its EDI flows and its API flows. So this is where I'm coming from. So I just joined Infosys Consulting as an associate partner, as Jaakko mentioned it, with the idea of pursuing this track of accompanying companies in their digital transformation journey. So glad to be here today.
All right, thank you very much, Lionel. So today we're going to be, let's say, addressing and trying to answer the questions around the data, and specifically like what are the data connectivity challenges within the ocean shipping industry that we are experiencing at the moment. Why is this industry's digitalization essential, and what are the initiatives in this regard that have happened recently, and also that how can companies take the leap and jump onto the digitalization bandwagon, and especially if they have limited skills and know how to do it. So I would propose that let's go to the topic. We have about 20 minutes here to discuss, and then the questions on top of it. So Lionel, first of all, can automation of the exchange of vital business data significantly improve the supply chain performance in your mind?
For me, it's a definitive yes to this question. There is, I mean, data quality, data exchange of information. It's key if we want to improve what customers are expecting. So that means that there must be a collective effort to contribute to events, to improve the track and trace, what we said in the logistics sector in general. So yes, definitely there is an overall appetite, and it's felt both by the customer, the vendors, and the shipping industry, and more importantly, the overall logistics sector.
Can you in any ways put it in, let's say, like quantitative measures, like, you know, how much could the improvement be? Have you done these kind of studies earlier at the CMA, or have you thought about it yourself?
In terms of KPI, I mean, data does exist. Data quality is not always there. There is, of course, it's difficult for a company to focus and to put part of its priorities data. Data is not a sexy subject to discuss. Normally, it's difficult to create value out of it. So it's more the value that you are destroying when you are not capable to go to the standards. I mean, we will introduce maybe later in this discussion the journey that we can enter if we want to make an overall progress. But yes, I see it as there is a very important perspective that we need to raise of putting data at the center of the company business model, because it will be a necessity for the future. So as far as my former company is concerned, we were, of course, tracking the data quality. We had started to have a data governance organization. We were trying to appoint data steward within the different departments in order to have a lot of the key stakeholders involved in this. I mean, considering the importance, not just complaining about the fact that the data is not correct.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. We work quite a lot as a company with the global logistics and especially the maritime logistics domain. And of course, we are looking at it with our, let's say, technical integration glasses on. But everybody understands that there's a lot of, let's say, old and legacy applications and technologies which are, error prone and causing inefficiencies in the business communications. But why, in your opinion, is the adoption of the, let's say, industry standardization initiatives and digitalization programs so slow in this industry?
I see two major factors. The first one is the fact that maybe 2020 will appear as an exception, but it's a low margin industry by essence. So you can make money out of it, but it's difficult. And you need to have a very important turnover if you want to make money at the end of the day, with a lot of years on which you are entering into the negative territories. So for me, that's one of the key explanations. The second one I would name would be the focus on assets and the fact that in the maritime logistics mainly, most of the attention over the past 20 years has been dedicated to ramp up the vessel size, buy new vessels in order to continue to participate to this war to the vessel size, because it was leading to a lot of economies of scales. And if you were not dedicating a big part of your investment policy to that, you were out. So I would say these two factors are contributing to the situation on which we have landed today. So that means have this sector appearing a little bit behind versus other industries, other sectors in terms of data quality.
All right. Thanks, Lionel. Of course, now we have in our hands also this COVID-19 pandemic, which has basically, surprised all of us last year and changed the whole world. How do you see the impact of COVID-19 in this industry on the long run, and especially can you see like a lot of developments or any specific developments caused directly or indirectly by COVID that will help or harm the transformation and the digitalization of the maritime logistics?
I see both trends. You may have something which is surprisingly can appear as a negative trend, a blocker. It will be the amazing good year that the maritime logistics in general have gone through in 2020. Surprisingly, I mean, most of the shipping lines have declared very nice profit increases, surprising profit increases due to several factors. The fact that the demand was finally not so weak when the supply of vessels was adjusted to fit with this global pandemic. So there were some parts of the world as well who recovered faster in Asia, and it contributes a lot to most of the economics for the main shipping lines. So of course, when you are making a lot of money like this, you may use this money to really enter into these new territories and try to recover. or you can go as well to old-fashioned way of thinking and think that finally it's not so important to dedicate time for this data quality improvement and so on. So I hope, of course, that the first option will be the one winning, and that there will be that this fresh air, which is arriving at companies financial in this sector, will be dedicated to accelerate on the transformation.
All right. So I remember we spoke, I guess, face to face last time in Barcelona, like a year ago, before this COVID stuff started, and you mentioned in our discussion that you are basically, you were in charge of the DCSA program on CMA's CGM's behalf, and so there's a lot of these ongoing developments programs worldwide. For example, the DCSA. How do you see these programs and their, let's say, capabilities of resulting tangible results, and how will be these benefits realized? Who is going to be the driving force for these programs? Is it the shippers or the freight forwarders, carriers, or the standardization bodies, or somebody else, and why? Okay, there's quite a lot of questions here, but maybe we can cover these step by step.
For me, we have several interesting initiatives. Fortunately, CMA-CGM was participating to all of them, so I was not directly involved in this, but I was participating to some of the meetings which were held on this interesting subject. For DCSA, we were contributing as a member as a CMA-CGM. And it was very interesting to enter into this standardization of some key events in the supply chain. I think that it was the industry was suffering a lot from the very strong compliance checks which were done over the past years. So maybe there were, of course, abusive practices in the past, but we went from a situation where people were talking a lot and they were exchanging a lot of information on rates and so on 20 years ago, to a situation where nobody was allowed to talk to anybody, to nobody. And in that case, it has stopped maybe the collaborative approaches between the different key players in each industry, and mainly in the maritime sector. And so this key subject on how to populate events, how to agree on what is the move that we should describe in the supply chain. I think that people have waited too long before entering again into this collaborative approach. So I hope that this CSA, as well as the Trade Lanes initiative, which has been launched by Maersk and IBM, on which EUROADI is contributing quite actively, the GSBN initiative, which was launched by COSCO and other Chinese operators. All these initiatives, I think it's important to give importance to them, to try to support them and try to adjust your business model in order to be able to be part of this. So you name it, either it's a standardization initiative, either it's a private blockchain. But it's very interesting to show the good example, and I hope that after that, of course, the shipping companies will be able to ask their partners, their vendors, to populate additional events to enrich the model.
Yeah, what we are seeing now related to DCSA in our daily work also is this track and trace compliance on DCSA standards is something that is clearly of interest to many parties, and there's actually some active work around this going on, which is of course nice to see. I think somebody mentioned earlier that typically the standards take about 7 years or 10 years to be deployed. I guess about the same time as a regular vaccine, actually. But in this case, DCSA has done a really, remarkably quick turnaround with their standards, at least for multiple use cases. If you think about this, let's say year 21 and 22, what do you see as the main trends regarding the technologies and let's say the B2B communication platforms for the ocean shipping?
It was, as I was saying, it was a surprise. 2020 was a surprising year because we went back into something which was unexpected, with maybe the old-fashioned way of doing maritime shipping coming into play. 2021 is starting a little bit the same way, so that means there is an overall shortage of equipment, for example, heating the entire planet and allowing, of course, customers to be obliged to pay to have access to containers, because now it's becoming a scarce resource in some key parts of the world. So all these kind of things are a little bit are moving things a little bit behind, moving things a little bit backwards. I'm sure, I mean, I worked a lot on and I have a passion for the subject linked to disruption. I'm sure that all the industry must be attentive to the fact that there is a possible disruption coming when it comes to the customer experience, and so there must be, we must continue to action things in order to accompany a digital transformation in each and every industry leader, because if these companies are not doing it, somebody else will do it, and these entities will be the ones leading the show in the next 3 to 5 years. So I was betting a lot that the e-freight forwarders, for example, will take much more importance in 2020, and finally the pandemic has been a slowing factor for them. But it's not because they have not been particularly successful last year, then they will not be successful in 2 or 3 years' time. So the big trap now is not to fall into, is to rely on the fact that the things will continue to work with this very specific agenda that we have right now. I hope that when the situation will be back to normal, the normal scheme will apply, and those ones who are not paying attention to customer relationship will be the ones suffering the most.
Yeah, it sounds smart. And how would you summarize, let's say, other meaningful elements or movements in this whole world or globe that could block the digitalization of the logistics, especially ocean logistics, and how can we all kind of support and carry our torch to help this industry to be more, let's say, lean and straightforward and efficient and effective in all the ways, if you think about like macroeconomic level as well?
For me, definitely the consolidation. I know that the word consolidation sometimes is scaring people and is scaring customers, but in the maritime shipping industry, it was a necessity to consolidate the main players. So now that you have roughly, let's say, 8 key players worldwide, maybe an appetite in the coming weeks and months for additional merger and acquisition. I'm sure that all these companies will be attentive to customers. I mean, the recent move that MSC did, for example, by appointing Soren Toft as a CEO, for me, it's for example one of the signs that MSC is entering maybe into an era on which they will be more attentive to customers, to digital transformation and all the topics that maybe they have not gone a lot into over the past years, focusing more on their operational excellence, focusing more on their strategy involving terminal operations and container shipping. So I believe that the industry consolidation will be a good factor, and that it will contribute to really have the key players starting to work more and more effectively. A lot of companies are putting customer at the center, which was not the case. I mean, without insulting anyone, it was not so much the case. The focus was on assets in the past. Now the focus is more on customers. So if you want to put customer at the center, you will need to improve your data quality for sure. You will need to work on the predictability of the volumes that you are carrying and avoid this completely ineffective situation where you have mountains of containers waiting for a vessel to sail them, to ship them. So that's one angle. The other angle would be, of course, the blockchain initiatives and try to start seeing the value of collaborating more in populating events because it's beneficial to everyone in the supply chain. So I think that there will be some additional steps required for that. Trust has to be established more and more between the different players, but I hope that everybody will be able to see that these initiatives are neutral, that these initiatives are objective, that they are not focusing on serving the interest of one or the other player in the industry. So for the leaders, they have an important role to play to ensure that this neutrality will remain. For the ones which are a little bit skeptical to enter and to contribute more, they have to trust a little bit more on this neutrality and on this subjectivity. And I hope that like this, there will be an automatic increase in the data quality, because there will be, of course, a self-cleaning of all these events which will be populated.
All right, that sounds really smart and good analysis. Thanks a lot, Lionel. Maybe to summarize, I think we're pretty much done with our questions here. I think, let's take some questions from the audience, and please send those in the Q&A. But in the meantime, when we are looking also at this industry coming from the technology background, it seems that there's a lot of these cooperation programs going on, and whether they are in Asia or global or Western world, but people also always somehow mention this ownership of the data and let's say the competition between the parties in this consolidated market of ocean shipping. Do you think these parties will be eventually able to work together on a, let's say, like on a very open standards way somehow?
That's one of the main difficulties, because as I was stating a little bit earlier, these companies have not been able to talk together, to discuss together, because they were completely restrained by the different compliance authorities, which were of course making sure that they were not disclosing any commercial information between them, which is completely normal. But sometimes it's avoiding other channels, it's avoiding other type of information to be exchanged. So for me, we should reinstate a way to discuss. We need to have this platform, of course, in total respect of the compliance rules, but this platform on which we are contributing to as a sector, as an industry, to the improvement of the data set that we are making available to our customers and partners.
All right, cool. And we actually have a question here which relates to the data set. So the question is that, is there a standard data set for a defined supply chain scope? If so, how can this data set be obtained? If not, should there be a standardized data set from your perspective? And feel free, Lionel, to answer this question.
I'm not an expert in this, but I would say that this, for me, that's one of the goals of the CSA. Yeah? So enter into the different events which are populating the supply chain in the maritime industry, and try to have a common definition of what is, I don't know, the unloading status of a container, for example. So we try to agree collectively on how we are recognizing it, and how we are jointly tracking this information in our operating systems. So for me, the CSA is the entity which is dedicating more time and energy on this. There are as well other standards which are applicable, but this is the initiative on which the maritime industry, so not all the shipping companies are contributing to it, but the major ones are there. So I think that it will be a very good starting platform to see an increase in these standards. Yes, an increase in quality.
Yeah, and maybe I can answer from our side as well to this question. So there's definitely different kind of data sets for different kind of use cases and purposes, like, also on the EDIFACT and ANSI X12 side. But the thing is that most of the companies use this in a different way. So there is not a, let's say, a very universal way of using, even though it's standardized in, for example, in these widely used standards of EDIFACT and ANSI X12. There's always room for, let's say, customization or configuration for different companies. So that's why there's a lot of let's say configuration to be done to make it fully automated and scalable.
And I hope that maybe to add and to make a bit of a publicity for your EDI, because I think that it's important to mention that. It's good when you are struggling, because we are talking about API and the nice blockchain initiative and so on. So let's say that these solutions are more for the near future than for today. But today, each and every company is struggling with these EDI connection with these partners and vendors, a lot of specificities, a lot of customization made over the years, difficulty to support the platform, difficulty to get budget from the IT organization to sustain that. So sometimes when you are struggling and when you are a little bit old-fashioned in the way you do, it's very good to have a third-party company specialized in this, looking at helping you making the audit, and then helping you getting rid maybe of some of the tasks that you are not performing well, in order to allow you to focus on what matters. So I mean, I think it's important to stress that the fact that we are talking about very high-level subject linked to the future and blockchain and so on. But I mean, today in each and every company, you have EDI connection with your customers, you have EDI connection with your partners when you are involved in logistics, and most of the time these connections are not particularly effective. You are wasting a lot of time and energy in this. So sometimes it's not a saving to make to keep it internal. It's good sometimes to have a look at what's available in the market and to ask experts who have this habit to industrialize a little bit your EDI connection, to pay attention to it, and at least provide advices and maybe take over.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for those kind words, Lionel. And now we are just ready to take up all the calls from the attendees, of course, after this call for if you need help. Thank you. But I think we are ready to conclude. Once again, we thank you a lot for your time, and now especially joining as you are in your new role. All the best of success in 2021, and hopefully, and possibly we can continue our cooperation in the future as well.
I'm sure that EDI matters will show up one day, or not. If it's not today, it will be tomorrow.
Yes, and thanks for all the attendees for joining. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, and I wish you a great end of the week. Thank you. Bye-bye.